Okay, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Schema App Live. Today we are merging two of my favorite things in this world, two of three, I guess, which is schema markup and trivia. We're
Yes.
also joined with Martha Van Berkel, CEO of Schema App, and Dave Ojeda. We're so happy to have you as our star
Woo
guest
woo!
today.
Excellent.
Um, so, just to introduce everybody, Martha, take it away.
Sure, I am Martha Van Berkel. I'm the proud CEO here at Schema App, and this is my knowledge graph. And for those of you that know me, you probably could present this for me. But I like to share sort of how I'm related to other things. I'm a really proud alumni of Cisco. I do have a technical background. Actually, jumped on a phone call last night with some Queens alum. I am Canadian, and so it is cold here. I have two kids, Garrick and Ruth, and I used to drive an Austin Healey Sprite. And fun fact about my Austin Healey Sprite that I haven't shared, Kevin Bacon used to drive it, but it like would drop the brakes or the gears at like the most horrible busy intersections in Toronto. And I used to joke that it was like, I don't know if it was like trying to make a fool of me, but my car had a really good sense of humor. Over to you.
Okay, so this is my knowledge graph. You can see that I am a member of Schema App, where Martha is the founder. So that's where our knowledge graphs will connect. I am also a Toronto Maple Leafs super fan, and I am staying up to date on this year's Canada only hockey league. So I'm excited for that. I have a history of being a digital marketer and volunteering with Heart and Stroke. I am super happy to pass off to Dave Ojeda, and please take us through your knowledge graph.
Great, great. So I'm Dave Ojeda. I'm an American and I live in Chicago, which instantly defaults me to be a fan of the Bears. Go Bears. Um, I volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. I am also a competitor and practice judo as well as Dungeons and Dragons with my kids. COVID has been a great time for that. I'm an alumni of Northeastern Illinois University, where I received a liberal arts and computer science degree, and currently an SEO and semantic consultant. Now, one thing that is left out of the graph that I have to add right now quickly is that, I am an author of a review, with the item reviewed being Schema App, and my review rating is always 5 out of 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
Dave, you're too kind.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have introduced Dave, although I've learned all these fun facts. But Dave was one of our first customers. So, him being an SEO and semantic consultant, he's sharing a ton of value these days, connecting the dots around how semantic technology works. And I'll never forget, Dave. I think it was 2016 or 2017, and you're asking us to do training. And it's when Mark and I first built our advanced boot camp to explain not just what schema markup was, but like how this all works in the semantic world and how they come together. And Dave was, that first person to buy that. That's forced us to sort of put it on paper and really sort of launch us into that journey. So Dave, super honored for you to join us today. I think he's going to probably teach me something, since in our practice runs, I kind of got the wrong answers all the time. So Dave, welcome, and just honored to have you both as a customer and a friend.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see that you play D&D. I'm currently running a level 9 Warforged exploring the world of Eberron, so we can
I have
geek
no
out on
idea
that
what you
later.
just said.
We will, that's geeking out on a different level, and I'm all up for that.
Right
All
on.
right.
Well, I think before we get into the questions, we just have a little bit of news to cover. There was some discussion around structured data and its impact on ranking, and we just wanted to share some thoughts on that.
Sure. So I can kick off, and then Dave will have you jump in too. And so John Mueller was talking about structured data and sort of, he called it unsupported structured data, which I like to translate into the structured data that influences rich results. And so he was really, saying in different words that, if you want to stand out in search with a rich result, you need to focus on using the features and the schema.org types that are documented in developers.google.com. The thing that we've talked about is that, it just doesn't mean that those are the only type of pages that you can optimize. If you're, doing a case study, or you're talking about an enterprise product that, it's a product, but it doesn't have a review in a product, that beautiful nesting of rich results, something that we're super passionate about. Dave, I know you're a top user of schema paths to understand how you connect those things. And so it really just is going to challenge us as SEOs to make sure that, if you want to see that visual impact, yes, make sure to nest or sort of use those features that you have there. And then the other piece he called out was around schema markup having light or no influence on rank. And this is not new news. This is something they've been saying for a long, long time. And while it promotes understanding, right, it's not a direct factor in rank. And so again, we weren't surprised to hear that. We didn't think it was new news, as well as, you have to adopt the things that need to get done. Now, there is a question of like, should you then optimize pages that you can't get a rich result for? And my advice would be like, we need to work harder to have content on that page you can get a rich result for. So take that as a content strategy question. Jeff, anything you want to add to that? And then we'll ask Dave to chime in.
Yeah. So one thing I saw through all of this discussion, there's a bunch of articles, some Twitter tweets about it, and it was almost like a throwaway where he said, "Oh, you're using web page schema." Like, duh, it's a web page. And that's been something we've talked about for a long time. Like, don't repeat web page schema on every page of your website. Don't repeat organization schema on every page of your website. Take it as an opportunity. Like, it's a given. This is a website. This is a web page. This is your opportunity to find a more specific or interesting or accurate schema type and give some additional context to your content. I don't think he said he doesn't, or Google doesn't use this to inform their content. They just said rarely do they learn anything new. So I think that's, on us as, web developers or SEOs to make sure that we're doing our best to explain those connections and pieces so that you can teach Google something and they would use it.
Jeff, can you just talk about also, like, you might do structured data also to enhance Google Analytics? Like, this is assuming like Google's one consumer. So the other angle we've had is like, you might use structured data. And in fact, there's like a huge initiative right now that Google, Microsoft, and a couple organizations in healthcare are doing around like, how do we use schema to structure physician data to better be able to have an understanding of the type of services and physician behavior sort of across the web?
Okay.
Huge
Yeah.
application.
Yes.
So you might want to use schema markup other types that aren't Google features if there's a bigger picture initiative that you're thinking, like enhancing your analytics or perhaps influencing, data mining for physicians.
Well, yeah, and you're totally right. So if you go through this effort to accurately mark up all of the content and things on your website, there's an additional value to be had outside of like search. It's now you have this graph that's relevant to your company and your brand, and you can pull some business intelligence out of that. So, recently working with health networks, they have this question where it's, okay, COVID is clearly the top issue relevant to their patients and, their audience. But, as we come to a new normal, or even just what's that number 2 issue, we don't want to leave important health topics to the wayside. So if you have this graph that's representing your content, you can query it and pull out, bits of business intelligence that give you an indication of what are people interested in, and that can inform your content and your business decisions. So there's this graph reuse play that's additional value even outside of SEO.
Enough of our rant. Dave, what do you think?
And I mean, with the unstructured data, I mean, and always we hear the word for the understanding. It helps with understanding, and it does. But I mean, they're constantly saying that. So when I think about that is, we have the rich result opportunities and everything else. So we look to build that quasi internal knowledge graph for a site, but also by that build, we also start to understand these relationships and even where they can be placed. So schema actually helps as a development process to know, like, where should things be? What makes logical sense from a schema standpoint, which is all about relations, into just the way the site is. And I think that's an important thing. And I think that schema allows you to gives you that ability to do that. And then with understanding is, while we build it and it may not get you a rich result now, being proactive and building a proper knowledge graph within your site sets you up for success long term in case there is a switch with something. And then you are at the forefront being there for a potential new rich result that comes in, which has happened.
Future proofing. My other favorite topic.
Okay, so I think we could dig into this, but we do have some trivia to get into. Trivia. Okay, so a couple of ground rules here. First is just how we're going to do this. So we're going to have 2 sections of 5 questions with a break in between the first 5 and after the second 5. We'll read through all of the questions. There'll be some discussion amongst us about them. We'll do our best to go alongside with you playing at home. and then we'll recap the questions, reveal the answers. We're going to repeat that. 10 questions total, 2 groups of 5. Are you ready? Martha, you ready? Dave, you
Jeff,
ready?
do we want people to
Ready.
put their like guesses in the chat as we as we go through, or is there, you
I
know?
think so.
All
Yeah. So
right.
we do have so we are playing for a prize here. So your participation makes you eligible for the random draw of a $100 Amazon gift card that we will
Perfect
be
timing.
releasing who wins after this. So play along, put your answers in chat, and let's see if we can get some discussions through these schema trivia questions. Okay. Question number 1. We're going to have some fun. Question number 1. Launched in June of 2011, schema.org was the result of a collaboration between which companies? Was that A, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and Yandex, B, Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo, C, Google, Mozilla, and Netscape, D, Google, Yahoo, Ask.com, and AOL? I
All right,
see
chat's
that.
disabled, so put it in the question piece and we'll call it there. Gotta love our first pop quiz. Go team.
That's right. And notably left off of this was Ask Jeeves. That was my search engine of choice back around like 2001.
Awesome.
Okay, question 1. We're going to move to question 2. Here it is. Is Google able to render schema markup in different languages? A, yes, all languages. B, yes, but only some languages. C, yes, English and Spanish only. And D, no, it's English only.
All right, let's have a little chat about this one. Dave, your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on this. At this, I think I know the answer because I've heard it lately, and in fact, I heard it on a certain webinar that I've seen Martha on. So, so I think I have an advantage here. So I won't say the
Go
answer.
do it. Just say it. We're good. People have already thrown their thing in.
I said all languages.
Yeah, I think so
That's
too.
my
Because
A.
schema's only in English, like the vocabulary, but I think you can do all languages. In fact, I think Schema Apps supports all languages.
Mhm.
I'm pretty confident Schema App supports all languages.
Yep.
Okay.
We're that inclusive kind of bunch.
Question number 3. So we've gone from does schema markup do all languages? Question number 3, which schema markup formats does Google prefer? And the potential answers are microdata, RDFA, JSON-LD, and JavaScript. So this was a point of contention for a while there. I think
I'm
there is a
seeing
clear
a
winner,
mix of
though.
answers here. All right, let's see. C C C C C C C C C C C C C C C.
Holiday spirit there.
Yes.
I know. Jeff told me I could sing today, so that's sorry, everybody.
It's the holiday season. Go ahead.
You're gonna see the festive version of Martha coming up.
I'm seeing a lot of C. I'm seeing a lot of A, which I think that was the discussion for a long time. We're going to find out after we go through our next 2 questions.
All right, I'll hold my thoughts.
True or false? This is my favorite type of question because you have a 50% chance of getting it right no matter what you do. The more top level entities you can add to a page, the better. So if you just
entities being like the thing, right? You know, that top topic.
Yeah, it's your schema class that's not nested within something else. It is the greatest, largest, most top level entity. And if you can have more of them, is that better? True or false?
Dave, do you have a favorite entity?
My favorite entity? It's local business. Love local business.
You're one of those, right?
The potential, day in, day out, and all those incredible, subclasses below it. It's lots of great opportunities there for businesses.
I know they asked me on SEMrush like what they thought my weirdest pending thing was. And I was like, man, this is a pre-question. Like I have to go look at the weird and wonderful pending areas. All right, last one. And then we're going to dig into the answers.
Okay, well, we know what everyone's favorite schema class is, but do you know what the most generic schema.org class is? So the options are A, object, B, entity, C, thing, D, type. I think there's some tricks in here.
Maybe we started with some too easy questions in here. All right, we got, Nick from the UK. Welcome. Hope your puppies are doing well.
Seeing a lot of, I saw B, I saw D, C. This one's kind of getting Oh, some more Ds. Well, let's find out. We're going to summarize the questions really quick here. So number one, launched in 2011, schema.org was the result of the collaboration between which companies? Two, is Google able to render schema markup in different languages? We know what Dave thinks. He thinks that yes, it's all languages. Three, which schema markup format does Google prefer? Four, true or false? The more top level entities, the better. And five, what's the most generic schema class? Do we need a
Is it?
drum roll?
Yeah, we need a
Drum
drum roll.
Drum
roll.
roll.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, here we are. So for
Okay.
those of you playing at home, here's your answers.
So here we are. Number one, I always, like when I present, I talk about Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and Yandex. So when we went through this, Yandex was a late comer to
It's
the
true.
collaboration. So who knew? And
I got
Microsoft,
this
it was
one wrong too.
Bing specifically who helped do it. And what's interesting is Steve, who was the gentleman who actually worked at Microsoft, he hasn't worked on Schema.org for a while, but he was the one who, when I spoke to him, oh my goodness, like 2 years ago, I think 2018, he and I were going through how he's trying to use structured data perhaps on images and visuals, because as he works now on virtual reality, how do those things come together? So Microsoft, even though they perhaps aren't the primary consumer we all build for, are still very aware and using it. They just have a very, very strong internal knowledge graph that often informs a lot of their content.
Yeah, I've heard some clamoring from the greater SEO and structured data community for some better documentation around how Bing consumes structured data. Because as you said, we know they do, but if they could be more clear, that would be helpful to us who are implementing.
Another New Year's wish.
Another
Yeah,
New
yeah.
New
Year's
Year for
wish.
2021.
Okay, and then I think one of the most contentious parts here, and probably the answers that were the most split, was question number 3. What markup format does Google prefer, microdata or JSON-LD? This is in the documentation now, but it wasn't for a while. It has been maybe for a year now, I think, maybe a little longer, but it is JSON-LD, and of course, that's what Schema app is producing for our customer websites.
Someone asked if we're going to share this. We will share the presentation out so that you can have a look, revisit, and if there's things that you want to play at home with your kids, teach them a little something about schema markup. We'll be sure to share that information.
So it's not always clear, or at least when I was first learning about schema.org, what generic schema class meant. So we have a little snapshot here for you. And this is what we mean when we say it's the most generic. It's just that this is the highest branch in the tree, if you want to think of it that way. It's nothing is above or more generic than a thing, because at the end of the day, everything is at least a thing.
And thing is what you'll sometimes use to describe an animal, or things that perhaps there's not a better class in order to describe. And I think in one of our previous Schema App Lives, we talked about using Wikipedia or Wikidata to be able to kind of define that thing, clearly. So is it a thing? What kind of thing is it? It's where we always say that, Jeff, you have a background in philosophy, right? What is this thing?
What is this thing? Okay, we're going to launch into our next half of the questions. So you have 5 more questions. There are questions 6
we didn't
through
cover
10.
the top entities. We got to talk about top entities.
The top entities. Okay.
So last one,
One left.
is it better to have lots and lots and lots of entities at the top page
correct.
level? And the answer is false. This is again where we're talking about nesting. So if a page is about something, so let's say it's about a product and there's a video on the page, there's a rating and a review, there's also an FAQ, we want to beautifully nest that stuff underneath using those great strong connectors like about, mentions, has part, etc. So let's with that we'll launch in, but I do think that's a really important one, because again, something I see a lot of plugins doing is where they throw 5 entities on a page, or let's just put org on every page, whereas the organization should be in relationship. Dave, you want to jump in and have a thought on there?
Yeah, I think that for the most part, I think a lot of pages are very straightforward if you understand schema.org, what is the top entity? And I think that sometimes there's that issue where it's we're not sure. And so I think that question actually lends to itself to are we putting what we need to put on the page? Are we making it confusing?
Totally.
Schema.org coming to the rescue of just understanding the content and the way it's presented. So, but I think that for the most part, you always want to have it. I think there's some other reasons why you don't. And I think that's a little more advanced topic, which I think Martha has talked about on a recent webinar regarding multi-type entities, but save that for another webinar.
we'll save that. I think it's just important to understand that like clarifying the things on your website using schema classes, really great. Almost equally important is explaining their relationships. So nesting appropriately within your markup does that.
Love it.
Okay, so we're going to launch into question 6. Schema.org has types and properties to describe all of the following except, so one of these is missing from the vocabulary. It's either
I know
A,
this for
housing.
sure. I know this for sure because of some a
I
lesson I
just
learned.
said it.
Well, I was hoping we would sail over it, but it could be housing. It could be animals. It
Oh,
could be
someone's saying
diets.
diets. Yeah, we got
It
diets.
could be sports.
Sports.
I've
Yeah.
I've created the mock-up structured data for the Maple Leafs before, so I'm pretty sure that sports organization exists.
We're seeing really mixed results in here. So keep putting those in that question and answer piece. We're seeing B's,
B,
C's, and
C.
D's.
Correct.
There is some. Oh, I got a dang from Darren. How are you doing, Darren? Oh, Lillian's here. That's great. We got some of our regulars.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question just for time here. Question number 7. When there is not a schema.org property that fits what you are trying to describe, what should you do? A, link to Wikipedia. B, use additional property, which is a property in the schema.org vocabulary. C, suggested in GitHub. Or D, all of the above. And this is a great question because it comes up
I
all
like
the
this
times.
one.
It comes up all the time.
All right, answers coming in. Oh, I'm seeing them fly through. All right, I'm seeing
D,
D's and
lots of
B's.
D's. B.
When in doubt,
Okay.
all of the above.
When in doubt, all of the above.
We joked that like that's how we passed our degrees, right? Like on those multiple choice questions. It's like
I was
true or
a
false.
strong believer of just filling in C. It doesn't even matter. Just try C. It worked out about a fourth of the time. True or false? According to John Mueller from Google, structured data will get easier over time. True or false? I think this has been a topic that we've talked about in the webinars of past.
I don't know. After 4 years of doing it, I feel like it's getting easy finally. But you know, that's
Practice
Dave,
makes perfect. Practice
do you
makes
feel
perfect.
like, Dave, do you feel like structured data is getting easier?
Easier for someone doing it all the time. Yes, easier in terms of there's so many new things that they're putting out there that it becomes more opportunities, but also I think the complexity has increased.
Yeah, and this is like talking from us who do it all the time, like every day, and we're sort of like invested in understanding the semantic relationships. I think the harder part is when you're an SEO and this is like one of the 1,000 things that you need to keep an eye on. I may have just given away the answer. All right, next question.
Next question. All right, this is the penultimate question. To create connected schema markup, you should A, use @IDs. B, nest your entities. We've talked about doing that. C, use strong connector properties, or D, all of the above.
Hey, Yarno's here. Nice. Yarno's nailing the answer. Good job, Yarno.
Here we are.
Great to see you.
A lot of B's. We see a B from
Pro
Gustavo.
tip, copy off of Yarno.
Yeah, I was going to copy off of Yarno. Yeah, this is a great one. And this is, I would say, like something we're so passionate about. So we'll dig into this one. Last question, Jeff. Boom,
Last question. Here it is. Schema.org type to best describe a page with a lot of different content types when no primary theme or like implied hierarchy exists. So what do? A, use an item list. B, a collection page. C, a web page. D, it's a service.
This is a good one. It's too bad my friend Jono from Yoast isn't here, so we could debate this one.
These last two questions.
I'm so tough on him, but we talk on the SEMrush webinar, so we're good. All right. Oh, we're getting a good mix here. I'm seeing B's. I'm seeing D's. All right. Should we go through these?
A, B, C, and D. So that one got a mixed result. Here's the questions again. I'll read them super fast. 6. Schema.org types and properties to describe the following except, so what doesn't exist in the language. 7, when there's not a schema.org property that fits what you're trying to describe, you should. Number 8, according to John from Google, structured data will get easier over time. True or false? Number 9, to create connected schema markup, you should. Which of these strategies or all of these strategies should you use? 10, schema.org type to best describe a page with a lot of differing content and there's no implied hierarchy. What to do or what schema class to use. And one more drum roll.
Boom, bada bang. Answer is
Okay.
Yeah.
So animals is the class that's missing. So
yeah. I like to describe mooses with things. I think when I was presenting in Texas, we described like how to explain what a longhorn was. But yeah, animals are missing. They're not people, right?
right.
So person doesn't kind of be the fit.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson when I was doing a local business, a veterinarian, and I was trying to a veterinarian. What type of animals? And I'm like, wait a second. I guess they're all things now. And I just, kind of in the early days assumed that it was there, but it is not. Hope it will be.
I
All right,
know.
let's talk about number 7, though. I think this is a really, really good one. So if there's not a
Yes.
schema.org property that fits, trying to describe, we're joined by Jarno van Driel from Holland, who is very active in GitHub. So thank you for your work in there as we try to mature schema.org. So it's, you are able to go participate and move schema.org forward. It's also fun to go in there and see who's talking about what. I've been recently talking a lot about what we're seeing come down the pipe from Google Shopping in the product side. Linking to Wikipedia, this could also be Wikidata and other sort of definitions. This has been a favorite. Dave, for local business, we used to do this for area served for a long time.
Yeah.
And then additional property. Jeff, do you want to talk about like when and how to use that one?
Yeah. I use this a lot of the time, especially for like not just like complex like products or services or things, but when there's a lot of details on a page around the most common one I've used this for is products, where you can describe the height and the width, and we have things coming out now about in the vocabulary about like how much energy it's consuming and things like that. But if you have fun properties like battery lasts for 8 hours, how would you mark that up? You can use an additional property and use a value property like name and value pair.
Mm-hmm.
So you can describe the name of the feature or the value. If it's in units, you can have unit text or the unit code in there and get really specific. But this is your chance to not just leave that out of your markup, but to describe it as best you can with a name and value pair.
Yeah, and there's I don't know if we have a good blog on that one yet. I know I've given some examples in some different presentations, but if you want to know more, let us know and we'll get Jasmine, who's one of our awesome customer success managers and
Love
semantic
her. Awesome.
ontologists to write up some good stuff for us.
We know that earlier in the year with question 9 that the @IDs became a popular topic. That's something that Schema App had been doing for, I think, since the beginning, but that is how you can avoid having these islands of markup. You can connect concepts across your structured data or your schema markup using the @ID to make sure that the thing, the entity, or a concept that you're describing is referred to in a singular rather than a plural in all these islands.
Yeah, I think number like the connected schema markup, like I would say like this is I think where we really help our customers fully maximize, the features that Google's talking about because, whether it be sort of, schema app just dealing with @IDs, we don't have to think about those because the application takes care of all sort of those relationships and forces you to kind of connect things and only have one unique @ID across the board. But a lot of this is like actually like understanding that, again, that story you're telling, Dave, I thought you just called out a really good one around, the content should be about one thing and then there's things supporting that or related to that you're connecting.
Right. And the IDs and the nesting. I mean, that once again, it's something that Schema App has been doing forever from the start, and it's something that helped me, helped my clients, but also, and it's nice that lately there seems to be some validation on the Google side for that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Shout out to my favorite strong connector properties. I use these every single day. So your most generic type thing has a property called subject of. So if there is something that's supporting that primary intent of your page, you can nest whatever that is using the subject of property. There's also properties like mentions that also allows you to implement a thing type. So
Yeah,
look for
and
those.
a shout out once again, as always, Martha, to the Schema Apps Path tool, which is a free tool available to everyone and is the best tool to understand the connectivity between entities. I love it, use it every single day, and I recommend it to everyone. It's
Yeah, if you just
outstanding.
Google it, there's a really good how to use it. It's now the tool lives in our footer, so if you're trying to find it, we've been cleaning up our menu, so it's down
Yep.
in the footer. Matthew, nice shout out. He was like, for 8, according to John Mueller, it's getting harder,
Yeah.
but thanks to Schema app, we're making it easier. So thank you, Matthew, for helping me market Schema app and the value that not only the technology provides, but also the fact that we are pretty much the only company out there that provides email support to anyone who subscribes to us, as well as high touch support for people who want us to help them get those results done.
Okay.
All right,
So
last one. Yarno's kind of called out on this one. So Jeff, what's your answer? And then we'll call out Yarno's suggestion here.
my answer for a page where there's a lot of different competing things, but none of them are obviously the singular intent of the page, is to use a collection page. That will allow you to nicely pull together a bunch of things. I think it's in the definition of the schema type. It's a collection of page. So yeah.
So
I see
Yarno's call out was he uses collection page when it's describing a collection or a listing page. A listing page that can be lots of different things. So maybe we'll get
That's
Yarno.
true.
We'll come you to join us on one of our next ones, and we can debate it out.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
And a point about the collection page, sorry, Trevor. A point
No,
about
go
the collection page was just, once again, like if it is different items that you're trying to group together, once again, another process to think like, why are these different items all on this page? Is there a reason? Can we look to maybe put them elsewhere so that we can properly relate and connect them on a singular basis, not through a collection? So once again, schema.org is giving us opportunities to make those thoughts and make those decisions and maybe revise the website.
Totally.
That's a really great point. Yeah, having structured data help inform your content decisions.
Love
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. Martha, you were talking about markup for a moose. Our example here is a beaver, so more Canadianity for everybody. And it's exactly what I would do, is I would have a thing and I would link to Wikidata through the additional type, or the same as property, either one. Okay, you're not gonna get through a Schema App Live without me talking about the Maple Leafs at least once. So did you know that Joe Thornton, who's a noted Maple Leaf, has his own Wikidata page? You do now.
You can pretty much use Wikidata to define pretty much anything, which is kind of the point here. Like even a maple leaf is described there.
Yeah.
Go Kings. Go Kings.
Go Kings. Okay, and nesting.
Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this was like almost like a gift when Google added this to there. So this is under the Google documentation around best practices around structured data. And they just, were like, please use @ID to describe the relationship between things. And the example they used was, a recipe that is the subject of a video. And if you can make sure that they're connected, then they know that they can show a video or they can show the recipe as the rich result. This was like a gift. It's like, seriously, like we haven't been lying to you for the last 3-4 years, that indeed Google does want you to do it the way Schema app does it. Thank you, Google, for making me not a liar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that was a big one. That was a big one.
thank you everyone for participating at home. That was Schema markup trivia. I'm interested to see how well everybody did, so shout out your score on Twitter afterwards. And we're going to spend the rest of our time answering your questions. I see there's a couple that are really interesting already. So we'll start with Emer. Your question: how often should you add the website schema in that case? Referring to our discussion, I think, about not putting it on every page. What is the reason it's provided if it's not useful? Thanks. I think we'll let Dave start with this one. What are your thoughts?
Well, with the website, with the website, I feel that the website should be that let's put it on the homepage. Let's put it on the homepage. And if you look at Google Structured Data Docs, there is a reference to using website in reference to the search. So I say put it there. But once again, after that, there's no need to put it anywhere else. You're looking at the pages. You're saying like, what is the top entity of the page? Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that top entity, and then the relationships that sprout from that within other pages and the internet as a whole.
Yeah, the other really good call out I thought was like you can use web page markup, maybe on a medical web page. And I think, Jeff, we've sometimes done like a multi-type entity where we want it to be a medical web page and perhaps something else, because medical web page has the properties around like reviewed by and being able to almost do those like authoritative links. And so I think, when Bill Slosky and I were doing a chat a couple of weeks ago, he was like, well, medical web page. And there's one other one, I think like legal topic or something that where like it makes sense because there's properties you want. And then I would probably, if it wasn't just an article, I'd still want to multi-type entity it.
Okay. So question from Emer, can you add FAQ schema and article schema to the same page?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking at that, for instance, an article which has an FAQ in it or FAQ section, going back to what Martha said, subject of. We have an article with a subject of, and that is a great connector because that allows you to do subject of a how-to, an FAQ, subject of a video or set of videos. So absolutely you can. But once again, going back to proper nesting, proper relating the entities.
I think we're giving away one of the top strategies for structured data by talking about FAQ nesting through the subject of property, because you don't have to do that only for, or you can't only do it for an article. You can do that for almost every schema type.
Christmas, happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Next question from Matthew is a good one. Does Schema app help with telling the user where to put what types of schema? So I'm going to kind of take this as like the big picture of like, do we suggest the type for the page? And all I'll say is it's a really hard problem, and I'll say not yet. It is something that we're exploring of, could we have a schema suggester with regards to like what we think that the page is about and about those entities. So kind of a big shift for us is as we structure the world's data, how do we also sort of do some machine learning and some inferencing on it? And so that is one of the questions that we're trying to ask. With regards to types of properties, Schema app does in our editor sort of guide you on required and recommended in order to kind of help you make sure you're hitting those at least basics. But a lot of it is you understanding the content of the things that you want to call out. In the highlighter today, we don't call out our required and recommended. However, it will be coming soon in our next version, which Lillian would probably ask me when it's coming out, and I'll say soon. All right, next one. Lots of questions coming in. You want to pick one?
Absolutely, yeah. I like Casey's question here. Is it bad practice to have a star rating appear in rich results, but not correspond to a star rating on the page itself? So I can just kick this off really quickly. I think you answered the question a little bit at the end of your question there when you said it doesn't correspond to a star rating on the page itself. The number one guideline from Google on structured data is that your schema markup should only represent something that's visible to the user of the page. So if you're adding an aggregate rating that isn't on the page or is different than what's on the page, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's bad. Yeah, don't do that.
One of the things, oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Dave.
One of the things I say with that is that I always tell clients that like with schema markup, you can mark everything that exists on the page, but you don't have to mark up everything on the page because it just gives you a flexibility. Some things on the page don't need to be marked up. They could be just some secondary reference to a carousel or something like that. So once again, going back to you, Jeffrey, is like, you can mark up everything on the page. You don't have to, but going back to it has to be on the page, especially with ratings.
Yeah, especially with ratings. Something to keep in mind is being clear about what is being rated. So I've seen people use like the Google star rating or their Google ratings for their company on their services pages and then marking that up. Well, like that's not really what they're rating. They're not rating this particular service, especially if you offer a bunch. They're rating your company as a whole, which is great. And their local business is an available type. It comes with more conditions on how to achieve the rich result. But don't reuse ratings for things that you're marking up where it's not accurate.
Good call out here, Yarno, saying Google owes the world a more in-depth explanation of how to use identifiers. Well, Google or Mark Van Berkel. So maybe we'll just put Mark on the spot to write us up sort of how properly to do ad IDs. Although I think there may be a blog from 2016 somewhere on our website that talks about ad IDs and the importance of them. I think he also did one on UIDs, like having that unique identifier. So we'll try to dig that up. I'll tweet it out. So if you follow at Schema App Tool on Twitter, we'll kind of send some other additional information. You're gonna love that call out. All right, let's jump in. How about this one around multi-type? Oh, this is a good one. Edwin. All right, Dave, Jeffrey, hope you've had your coffee. What is the best way to add multiple types? I'm using @graph to apply multiple types because that's the way the Yoast plugin does it. And a Moz contributor, who they forget their name, said it was a great thing. At a recent SEMrush seminar, Martha, me, just added multiple types. I'm confused. Help. All right, Jeff, you want to take a first pass?
Well, for me, it's really straightforward tactically because Schema app just lets you add multiple types and then it's done for you correctly in the JSON LD. So that would be my recommendation. It's a little biased since I'm a Schema app CSM telling you to use our software, but yeah, it'd be really straightforward to do it in the form builder. You can just add a second type for the type property as long as it's in the right JSON LD like format. And then you're done and you have access to all those properties.
Yeah, I'm as a client of my own sites and for my, and once again, go with the Schema App tool. It does everything you need to do. And I mean, it's one of the things where it's straightforward and you could just add another type. But once again, it all depends what two types you're going to add.
All right, so
that's another discussion.
So as the founder of Schema App, I'm not going to say just use Schema App, but so @graph like actually isn't a schema.org property, right? So we are purists here at Schema App. For a long time, like we will, Schema App allows you to do anything that schema.org allows you to do because we're big believers that there is a giant vocabulary, there's other uses, and we're a semantic technology company, right? And so that's like where we differ from Yoast. So we're like, the way to do multi-type entities within schema.org, which is sort of the vocabulary, which is to multi-type it. So to make it sort of more than one type. And so that's why Schema App supports that approach. And so, @graph, I was just checking, like how do you actually pull that in? I don't see sort of, I'll say specific documentation in schema.org that talks about using @graph. Again, I'm super grateful for Yoast that like many, many more people have adopted schema markup as a result of their plugin, which is like huge movement as just like our, how do we structure the world's content to be understood by machines? Yes, do it. But from a purely how do you adopt schema.org and how do you make sure that you're connecting two topics together, nesting, which we've talked about, or two, if it is described best as two things, like a house that's also a product, then multi-type editing. And if you want to follow up with us on that, again, you can tweet to us at Schema App Tool or reach out to us on our contact form.
Okay.
All right, go for it. You want to pick another one?
I think it's a fun question just to talk about quickly. Wikidata versus Wikipedia. Are they essentially the same? So I'm going to put that question to you, Martha.
Oh, to me. Dave, do you have an opinion on this?
The way I see this, Wikidata is language agnostic.
Correct.
Whereas Wikipedia is whichever flavor you're choosing, Wikipedia English, Wikipedia Japanese, or whatever. That's where I see the big differential. But I'd love to know if there's something else I'm missing there, Martha.
No, you got it. The student has become the teacher. Love it, Dave. High five. So Wikidata is like that language agnostic, and if you're like looking for, what are you using? Like that Q is often sort of where it's like referencing an entity within Wikidata. So we tend to prefer Wikidata. Schema App pulls out references in Wikidata or Wikipedia, sort of if you're looking to do that reference within the app. But Wikidata is, I'll say, like the most agnostic, like describing that entity and thing. So that's we would, if Mark was here, he would say Wikidata, as per Dave. So there you go. All right, let's do. Oh, there's some good ones here on and on some local business stuff, aggregate rating. So how about Dave, we're going to give this one to you. Aggregate grading looks great in the SERP. Do you have it updated daily? I mean, the highest and lowest is 5, then one day the lowest is 0, 1, or does it update automatically? Do you want to maybe describe how that works?
Well, I mean, with aggregate rating, I mean, once again, going back to the statement I think Jeffrey made before, it's like, you want to mark up what is on the page. So let's say you have a fast moving product, or your ratings are changing a lot, then you want to keep current with what is reflected on the page versus what reflected on the schema markup. So that's what now there may be issues with some smaller businesses can't do that often, but make it, I think regularly looking at your schema markup on a periodic basis is good for all businesses to make sure you're aligned with what's on the page, including aggregate rating.
And if it changes, it depends on the tool that you're using to do that, right? So if you're using our editor and that average is changing, then you need to kind of find a way to get that up to date. Or if you're using our highlighter, it's updated dynamically because the highlighter is kind of pulling what's live on that site. So this is a really important one to think through. And then a lot of rating providers like create their own markup, but then you have an island of markup. And so again, if you have a really great rating provider and you want a tool that likely can integrate it, just give us a call. That's something that we're good at. Here's a good one around, does Schema app audit additions made by Schema, or do you just have to go offsite to Google's Checker or SEMrush site audit? So I'm going to take this as like, how do you understand the performance of your markup, what Google's seeing, and sort of how do you see that over time? And so, Google Search Console we see is like still the source of truth with regards to like, what is Google seeing? So Schema app does have a couple different auditing. So we do have like a health check analyzer that will sort of look at the whole site and sort of let you know what schema markup's there. But one of the things that we just brought out, and Dave, I don't even know if we've shown this to you, but it's schema performance analytics. So it's our new reporting capability. It's just in beta with our enterprise customers, but it allows you to see over time how your schema markup's performing. It allows you to cut that data by rich results. It allows you to look at it as holistically. It allows you to look at it by template type. So it really is helping us articulate when the value that we're offering and also helping our SEOs share, what is the value of the markup that they're doing. So this is right now available to our enterprise customers. So if you're interested in learning more, although it is something that we're also exploring bringing to market for people who don't necessarily use Schema app for editing and authoring, but that can use it instead to report performance. So more coming on this in the new year. Again, nice. It's getting some pretty interesting insights with regards to also that sort of flow of content, right? So we're actually seeing where we update the template because the team has taken our suggestions on how to make something perform better, and then like we're seeing that increase like distinctly in how we're driving clicks and impressions. So really powerful way to articulate the value that you're doing as an SEO and that Schema app's delivering, because one of our values is like we want to be really transparent and open and honest and make sure that we're earning the value that people are paying us. And so this is really helping us support do that.
Looking forward to seeing that. Wow, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
We also have a really great article written by one of the Schema appers, Jasmine, who's a fellow CSM, and she's walked through the available options you have to audit or validate your schema markup page by page. So if you're not sure what tool to use or which tool to use for what use case, if you're checking rich results or markup that may not be eligible, then you can look for that and it'll compare and rank which ones are useful and what times.
All right.
I like this question. So Matthew is asking, can Schema app allow for antithesis callouts? So for example, JSON-LD does not equal a music celebrity. So can you have not statements in JSON-LD? I've never used a not statements in JSON-LD. I don't think that is part of the vocabulary.
I haven't seen it either.
No,
it's sort of more like what is, right? And yeah. So, it really is sort of describing what those things are, but interesting question. All right. Here we are. Yarno, when using both Schema app and Yoast, does Schema app integrate its output with Yoast, or do we remove Yoast output and generate its own? Well, we've been having a little checkbox in our WordPress plugin for 2.5,
Ever.
3 years to remove Yoast structured data. Like I said, they've done some really great work over the last couple of years. Jono's a colleague and friend. But no, we allow you to have control of your schema markup. So we're big believers in that, like, you need to be able to kind of put in what you want there, and be able to remove when you don't want it. So same thing you can do sort of with the Schema app WordPress plugin. So we have checkboxes that allow you to remove it. It also connects with our editor and our highlighter. So again, if you're a WordPress user, you can easily sort of, author things within Schema app and it'll automatically be pulled in. We're sort of aggressive about keeping that WordPress plugin up to date. It does all kinds of interesting, wild things. But Schema app also integrates with every CMS, right? So we're, our goal is that, if it's a custom made platform, if it's any of the enterprise platforms, we have many different ways to integrate, whether it be through JavaScript plugins. We even do webhooks now. We can do custom integrations. We really have that portfolio of providing that tool set to you to make sure that you can get the right schema and the schema that you want, on your website. And we're big believers also that you own that work product, so you can always get a download of your JSONology if you ever decide we're not as awesome as everyone else thinks we are.
And as a client, I love the option to, not necessarily remove Yoast, but to keep it clean, to keep one central truth in terms of the schema markup that you're providing, as opposed to having multiple things in there where the troubleshooting leads, it's a lot more intensive as opposed to having one source of truth when deploying.
All right.
Still time to have your answers questioned. So your
Jeff,
answers questions answered.
Jeff, what's the plan for announcing our winner? Are we going to send out an email so you'll sort of get the follow-up recording and with an email of our winner?
I believe that we are going to be announcing it on Twitter.
Oh, well, there we go. So follow us at Schema App Tool then.
That's right. And let us know how you did. So if you went through and you got 10 out of 10, shout it out. You should be proud of that. There was a lot of questions around like aggregate rating, and it is the holiday season. My instinct is that there's a lot of people who are wondering how to get the most of their product pages as there's deals going on. So I think something just to highlight that may be value to those people is that there's more rich results for products that are recently released. So there's a offer shipping detail schema that will show your shipping cost and estimated delivery times. So if you want to get the star rating, do it, of course, but also look at the shipping details. People are going to be shopping online more and more, and you want to be able to get them as much information as possible so that they can have a higher chance to convert when they get to your page.
All right. Let's wrap up. Follow us at Schema App Tool. We'll be making an announcement of the winner there. Also, if there's certain topics you want us to do, Jeff's on Twitter, Schema App Tool, we monitor there, or at Martha Van Berkel. We really have the value of wanting to help teach the community and our customers. So enable people like Dave to become the experts and really serve, the community as well, and sort of helping drive adoption and structure the world's data. All right. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.